Good evening, everybody. This is the October 13th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission meeting. And for the first time in months, we are actually in the conference room or in the boardroom live and not on a Zoom call. Although I think one or two members of our commission are going to be on Zoom on the telephone. And I think Les Schmidtke, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, Les. And we'll call the roll in a minute. And John Reilly, are you there?
Yes.
All right. So we'll call the roll. Costick is here. Reilly's here. Schmidtke's here. Phil Kennedy. Here. Lenny Pusdesris is excused from this evening's meeting. Jim Budny.
Present.
Lara Syrocki.
I'm here.
And Ted Van Oz. Here. Ted. So I think I've covered everybody. So we do have a quorum, and we'd like to start the meeting tonight. I want to announce that we all came in to the township office before we were seated with our masks on, being careful about wearing masks, and we are socially distanced here. I think the room is spread out very nicely. And with that, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, I'd like to also acknowledge that in the audience we have David Nadeau. Welcome, David. David is a newly elected trustee and treasurer of the township to take office, I guess, at the end of November. And also Ryan Walsh, who runs our wastewater treatment plant. Ryan, thank you for being here. And John Keim.
Good evening, Bill.
And of our DPS department, and our director, Director Thiel. Welcome to everyone. So the first item on the agenda tonight is approval of tonight's agenda. This is really the first time we haven't had any pressing action items in a long time, but we have no action items tonight on our agenda. Everybody's had a chance to see the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported that the agenda be approved as distributed. Unless there's any comments, I'll indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, and Les? Les? I heard John Reilly, Les. I don't want to shortchange you. All right. So the motion carried. Next is approval of the minutes from our August 24th meeting. You have some set of lengthy minutes that our director prepared. You've all had a chance to read them, and at least in my packet, page 3 of the minutes was missing, but Derek distributed those again today. Were they missing in anyone else's? Look, were they? Anybody notice? Anyway, you've all had a chance, I hope, to look at the minutes. And if you have, unless there's any questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the August 24th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Next, we have approval of this evening's bills, the vouchers that you found in the packet. Derek, the pages aren't numbered. Normally, it's easier if the pages are numbered, but we'll talk about that later. At any rate, are there any questions on any of the bills that were found on from 8/1/2020 to 10/1/2020? If there aren't any, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Vouchers. I'll support that. So moved by Budny, supported by Costick. So approval of our vouchers. Any questions? If not, I'll indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, and the vouchers are approved. Next, you all got an update of the 6-month statement of our water department, our sewer department, and our refuse operations. And we're at the 6-month or 50% point of expenditures. You've all had a chance to look at those. Unless there's any questions, we'll just receive and file the report.
just something worth mentioning. We do have our mid-year review tomorrow with various members of the Township Board. So we have finances prepared for that, financial statements prepared for that, and we'll be having that conversation with them tomorrow. So the board will be looking at all the same things you're looking at today.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Finally, of our normal items, we have the Treasurer's Report for September of this year. Total fund balance in all public service funds being carried forward at this point is $3,283,000. You have a copy of that. I'd like to have a motion to receive and file it.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll support that. If there are no questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion-
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. John and Les, if you have anything you want to talk about since you're on the phone, please do. I know neither of you will be timid about that, but next is our manager's report. Derek?
Yeah, as Bill had mentioned, we don't have any action items on our agenda for this evening. We didn't have a meeting in September, so I at least wanted to get everybody together to at least give you an update as to where we stand with a variety of different projects that we have ongoing. I expect at our meeting in November that we will have some action items that'll be put before you. So this will be an easy meeting, hopefully, but nonetheless very important to get you up to date as to where we stand, being it's been a little bit since the last time we met. Underneath my report, I have 3 items. The first one being the water loss report. We currently sit at 15.2 or 15.022%, which is the culmination of the various months that are shown there on your water loss report. And as you notice, there's also information about I&I over at the wastewater treatment plant. As everybody knows, we've had some pretty dry months. August and July were no exception to the rest of the summer. In August, we actually treated about 53 million gallons, actually closer to 54. But you can see our I&I is closer to 40%. So once again, a good indication that a lot of that is coming from rain events and high precipitation months in which we have a lot of infiltration that can be attributed to that based upon what we're seeing here. So if that, with that, if there are any questions, I would try to do my best to answer those for you.
Les, are you listening?
Yes, sir, I am listening, and thank you very much, Derek, for that report, which I appreciate.
I have a question, Les and Derek.
Yes, sir.
The prior months, I thought we were ranging between 12 and 14% loss.
Yeah, and it does fluctuate. As I've been mentioning for multiple months, we do need to put some numbers on hydrant flushing and water main breaks that we need to get to you. So it goes up and down, but keep in mind that we have billing cycles and whatnot that contribute to this. GLWAs isn't perfect along the lines of when we do our billing and when they bill us on a monthly basis, so that can attribute to some fluctuations in where our percentage sits on a month-to-month basis. And that's a reason why we do the running total and the running average, because that's really what we're concerned about, I think, is overall what we're looking at, not necessarily just the specific month over month over month.
So not necessarily, our water loss is not necessarily growing.
Right. I mean, we're fluctuating anywhere between, on an average, 12 and 16%, somewhere around there. So, 15% is kind of in line with what we've been experiencing. So,
Les, I think that meets the industry standard. Les?
Yeah.
Does that meet the industry standard?
Yes, you're pretty close to it because of water main breaks, flushing, and meters that are old, register, complete accuracy. So we're in pretty good shape. We've tightened it up pretty tight.
John, any comment? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Derek.
you're welcome. Second under my report is the DPS projects update. Raines is not in attendance at the meeting tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and handle the project update. And this is kind of the meat of our meeting. With regards to the memo that was included in your packet, the first item listed is the Park Lane Drainage Project, which we've been talking about for some time. I did ask for Raines to go back out and review the project location at the beginning of the month with the lower water levels that we've had, the lack of precipitation. The hope was that the water levels had receded to the point where we could start getting some topo information out there. Jason did go on site, and those are his notes that are included under this update. The water levels are approximately 1 foot deep with mucky ground below. His feeling was that it was still not accessible for him to be able to do the work he needed to do as of October 5th. So pretty much status quo with regards to the Park Lane Drainage Project.
Comment on that.
Sure.
Know that the river levels, Detroit River levels, have gone down, right, Phil? And I went out there today and looked at that, and it looks like most of the ditches don't have any standing water in them for the first time. Now there's a couple that have a little bit of water in them. Maybe it's just the grading of the bottom of the ditch compared to the culverts. I don't know, but it looks like it's much better than it was. So, when we first were approached with this, we talked about the cycles of the Great Lakes depths, and hopefully they may be declining a little bit from the highs. Anybody have any comment on that or feel for that?
I mean, we've experienced a lot less in the form of complaints from the residents up in that area. So, and I think that can probably be attributed to dry weather conditions and also the water levels going down slightly. Whether the levels are to the point where we won't experience problems in the spring, I don't know, but I think it's a point well taken. I think a lot of the issues we have over there are high river level water levels, which are cyclical. So that could potentially solve that problem. But the spring should be indicative of, how next year is going to be. So we'll keep an eye on it. The topo work, if we do end up if we're able to do the topo work in that area, we can go through that and then reevaluate after that's over with. That topo work, could have some other benefits. So we can reevaluate come spring, because I don't know whether or not we're going to get to the level of water yet this fall or winter that they're going to be able to do the topo work anyway. So we'll have to play it by ear like we have been with regards to whether we can get that work done or not. So.
And that, they've had nothing like we experienced last year. Right. When we were going out there and this all really got started and looked at. It's much better this year. And we do, from the cost standpoint and everything, we do have to study this pretty hard to see if we're going to do anything.
Yeah, and that's in contrast to the Swan Island project, which is next on the project status list. We have continued to experience problems on Swan Island, severe problems on Swan Island, where we're doing our drainage project currently. So there are definitely differences between the two locations, and I think the fact that we continue to experience problems there lends some validity to us moving forward with that project first, and then waiting for the Park Lane project, even though it was topo related as to why we weren't moving forward with additional steps, or the inability to get topo done down there. So
one thing as we go forward and evaluate that, if we're able to get the topo done, I'm sure that some of those ditches are pretty wet. And if you remember, we talked about a couple of things, but creating an outlet, but also perhaps reditching some of the areas, make sure they flow. And there's got to be an outlet, but it's a very expensive undertaking. And I guess what I could say is, with my little limited knowledge, if the Great Lakes are in a fluctuation period and they start to decline a little bit, I guess the one thing we could get done in the next year or so on that is have a plan. And maybe that's it. And if things reoccur, then we have at least a plan without short of moving forward with an expensive capital project. Anybody disagree with that, Jim?
I don't.
Swan Island.
I took a few photos. Took a few photos of the location today, just because I know sometimes it can be beneficial versus just talking about it. Brian, do you know how to? I'm not seeing the cursor here.
I think Brian walked away.
Did he?
Maybe Mike knows how.
Here we go. So,
Derek?
yes.
There's nothing up on our screen, so
Okay.
we're having a tough time seeing it. Ask Mike to, just ask Mike to come in and turn it.
Well,
You know how to turn these screens on? Our screens?
from that,
These, yeah.
from that camera.
Are they just black?
Black.
Like,
They're not
just
on.
powered off.
Yep.
Well, we can see it.
So regarding Swan Island, there have been some delays with that project because of primarily COVID, with the supply of the variety of components that are necessary for the project. But where we currently sit, the backflow valve on the gravity feed to that area has been installed. The wet well has been installed, and the force main discharge pipe has been installed. So the first picture here is the project location. This is the structure that's in the ground. Part of the delay was this cover here, which is manufactured by Kennedy. That cover there, you can drive over the top of it, so it's not a one-off type, or it is a one-off type cover, or it's a specialized cover rather than something that's just off the shelf. So that took a bit to manufacture. So this is the vault that's actually in the ground, or the structure that's in the ground, and you have a gravity feed that's running into that, and that's what the next picture is. So this gravity feed here runs up Swan Island to the north, and then this riser you see here is actually the discharge pipe. What has yet to be installed is the pump at the bottom of this structure, and then the panel that will go over in this location here. So the panel and the pump need to be installed. We're still waiting on delivery of those. And then the electrical connections need to occur in that panel to the pump. An additional action that needs to be done is the repaving of this area, and the base has been prepped, so that's complete. So we hope that the paving will be done sometime tail end of this week or the beginning of next. So those are the three components that need to be done. The discharge pipe, you can see it here. So that was a bit of an undertaking, digging on the back side of the existing seawall, and then putting that discharge pipe through that wall. You can see right there that it is plugged currently. So the project is moving along. Like I said, we have experienced some delays, but all in all, we're pretty pleased with the work that's occurring. I have been working with the residents. The contractor has been working with the residents. The engineers have been working with the residents in that area to try to ease the issues associated with disturbance in the neighborhood and addressing any concerns that they might have. But that's where we currently stand with the Swan Island project. Being that's in Phil's neighborhood, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Phil, or not, but.
No, I got back this afternoon and pretty much saw what you did. They still mentioned there's quite a bit of bypass around the line that we saw last week when we went out there. I don't know whether there's been a suggestion as how that's going to be remedied. They indicate that the valve is, the check valve on the input side is working fine, but there's still that significant bypass coming around there.
Yeah, what Phil's referring to is, if you remember under the scope of the project, we have a discharge, we have a gravity discharge line about 3 or 4 houses north of the end of the island that leads to the canal. Part of the project was to install a check valve in there, a red valve, a tide flex that keeps the water from flowing back into the system. Initially, they had some problems with installing that valve with it leaking, and it was attributed to the rough condition of the interior of the pipe. So they ended up having to epoxy the inside of the pipe to smooth it out and then get a better seal. That was resolved. They were able to install the check valve, and it's operating as intended. What Phil's referring to is there's actually water coming in around the pipe into the structure itself. We believe that there's a fault somewhere between that structure and where it exits into the canal, where the water's coming down the pipe, exiting the pipe, and then flowing in around the pipe into the structure. So we're going to have some sort of solution to that, whether that's excavating on the outside of the structure and then sealing it or resealing it to keep that water from coming in. But to Phil's point, if we don't have a complete closure or elimination of any kind of canal water coming into the system, it'll eventually fill up that structure downstream, and that pump will work overtime, just keeping up with that infiltration that's coming into the system. So that's something that the engineers and the contractor will have to work through, something that has to be resolved, but I know it's something that they will have resolved, and that's something they'll have to work on. One of the things that complicates things in that area is where the structure is and where the pipe runs from the structure to the canal. There's a large boulder right on the outside of the structure. It's either in the easement or it's right on the beginning of their private property. So there's not a lot of room to work on the outside of the structure to do the sealing that they have to do. So it's something that we have to work through in order to correct that problem. So that's kind of what Phil's mentioning.
That check valve, was that it's closer to the road, right? It wasn't near the canal?
Yeah, the check valve is in the structure itself. So sometimes they'll be on the outside of the pipe at the discharge point. This one is actually in the structure, in the pipe, close to the road. So, and the benefit of that is it allows for ease of maintenance, and it doesn't get silted in as much. You can check it easier. So, there's some benefits to having it, basically in the structure itself.
All right, well, it looks like it'll be done by the end of the year, hopefully, so that in the spring, maybe the flooding problems on Swan Island will be addressed. Let's hope.
I think we're pretty confident that it's going to result in a product or a project that we'll be happy with. It's pretty substantial when you go out there and take a look at the vault and the work that they're doing. I think hopefully it'll work as intended, and we'll solve some problems down there. So,
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep. Water main projects on Meridian Road and Bridge Road. Just as a reminder, we bonded or took out a bond for water main work, which we had bid this year. And the bids came in higher than anticipated, higher than the engineer's estimate, and also higher than the funds that we really had available. So it is our intent to rebid those projects. I discussed bidding dates with Rains prior to the meeting. Two things are kind of dictating when we would like to bid. The first one is we would kind of like to have the bid open or advertised during a time period in which we feel that there's going to be a resolution on the bridge closure, so that our potential bidders would know whether or not that's going to be a complication to the operation for next year. I mean, we fully expect that the bridge will be reopened in December, but if there are any unforeseen issues, we don't want to go through the bid process with bidders anticipating it still being closed and building that into their price when we could bid it when we know what the answer is going to be to that. So that's why it's being suggested that we have a bid time period of December 14th through January 14th. The other thing that's driving that bid time frame is when we did speak with the contractors that did bid on the project the first time around, we had discussed with them what they felt was the best time for us to advertise for the bids. And their statement to us was October, November, beginning of December, we're very, very busy finishing up projects with the weather that we have remaining in the construction season. You know, it's very difficult for us to get bids together while we're trying to finish up all that work. And then also when you start getting into the holiday seasons, it makes it a little bit difficult as well. So we wanted to extend the bid time period beyond when the holiday season is. So what's being recommended for these two different reasons is a bidding period of December 14th through January 14th. If there aren't any, nobody's opposed to that, that's what's being recommended. So just so you know, you can circle those dates on the calendar, and that's when we're anticipating having the water main project out to bid.
That's 2021 on your sheet, right?
The December 14th, 2021. Yep. Yeah, 22 for the 21 construction season would not be good.
Yeah, so that 2022 is
that way. So
good catch. I just, I'm the one that's always barking about trying to bid these projects so that the contractor in this case would have the ability with this schedule to start construction in March. And our February meeting of this commission is our budget meeting, usually. And so if we open bids around January 14th, the engineer would have time for a couple of weeks to evaluate all the bids. We should have a recommendation because we're at a point where we have to proceed or we'd be in trouble with arbitrage on the sale of the bonds, I think. We've got to get it under contract. You're going to bid all three projects, right?
Yes.
The first section of Meridian between Macomb or Parkway over towards Thoroughfare, and then a section of Meridian near Voight, or
Yes.
Voight, that small section, and then the section of Church Road between Meridian and West River, right? Okay, so we're going to bid all three of them. One thing I would ask, Derek, is that you are going to kick off the bidding December 14th. I think maybe you should have a kickoff meeting with the bidders. Invite bidders to come into a pre-proposal meeting and discuss things like the bridge and like the schedule, that they can, if we can get things moving, they could really get started in March.
You're recommending a separate meeting other than the mandatory pre-bid?
I don't see a mandatory pre-bid in here, so you're going to have a mandatory pre-bid.
Correct. Yep. Just like we did the first time. So the mandatory pre-bid will be sometime between when the bids are initially advertised and when they're due. So sometime between December and January, there'll be a mandatory pre-bid.
I think the mandatory pre-bid should be at the beginning of the process, what I'm saying.
Okay.
Not towards the end of it, but
Okay.
They submit their bids.
I think before the holidays, before the Christmas holiday. That gives them time, gives them 3 weeks or more, a month, but 3 weeks to really prepare their bid. And if they see competitors in the room with them, they'll sharpen their pencil a little bit, hopefully. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next on the report is the sanitary sewer system, TVing and cleaning. I guess I'll defer to you, John. You probably have a better update than I even do with regards to where we stand. So sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. Thank you, Dirk. Section 3 has been pretty much completed as of last Friday. Safeway was able to do about 90% of Section 3. The other 10% is still inaccessible due to high water levels along the Thoroughfare Canal. So as soon as that becomes accessible, they can come back and do that. But I anticipate it'll be next spring, at least before, or probably late summer till they can get in there and do that piece. We're well under budget for this year, and they did an outstanding job once again.
So Section 3 is in the middle of the island?
Correct. Ferry to Grosio Parkway.
Ferry to Gross.
Ferry Road south to Grosio Parkway. And,
Have you discovered any big leaks?
no, sir.
What about near the Ferry Road canal crossing on Meridian? No leaks?
No, sir. Nothing significant.
Questions on it? I keep hoping we're gonna find, I know Ted too, we hope we're finding a big leak someplace.
Footing drains.
Actually,
That really looks like it's.
if the budget's any indication, we have less in the way of leaks found this year than I think we did last year, because last year we were doing repairs maybe once every month and a half, and I think our repair line item is maybe 20 grand out of 150 that was budgeted.
That's correct.
It's actually less than what it was last year. So
Okay, thank you.
raw sewage pump number 1. If you recall, we had authorized Suez to perform this work. The project is currently under construction. My understanding in talking with Ryan is that there are a couple of additional parts that they need that are on order. So, but the project has started. It's been authorized. It's in process. So that's where we stand with regards to raw sewage pump number 1. If you recall, we have 4 raw sewage pumps. This one was a priority to get it addressed. Suez was a low bidder on this project, and they have been working on it. So,
When do you think it'll be done, Ryan? By the end of the year?
Yes, it will be, yeah.
The end of November?
He's waiting on some parts right now, so he'll, hopefully, Suez is gonna be there next week at the latest, so we're just waiting on that, there's nothing we can do.
You're waiting on parts?
Yeah.
Okay.
we do have the pump. There were some fittings that they needed to get, I think, to finalize it. So,
Okay.
raw sewage pump number 4 and the intermediate lift pumps. As we had talked about, I think at the last DPS meeting, we presented you a revised budget for upcoming fiscal years. If you recall, in that proposed budget, we were planning on trying to roll raw sewage pump number 4 and the intermediate pumps into the ACO work and kind of handle that as one big job. So Rains was in the process, and they have been working on trying to get authorization through Eagle to go ahead and build that into the ACO. And all indications are that, as is stated here, they were receptive to the time extension, and they're just waiting official confirmation in writing from Eagle with regards to handling it in that way. So these are pretty significant improvements and pretty significant work that needs to be done. So rolling it into the overall larger capital improvement project with the ACO, I think, makes a lot of sense from an economies of scale standpoint. And that's the game plan moving forward. So that's where we stand on raw sewage pump number 4 and the intermediate pumps. Any questions there? No questions. We have next on the list the HVAC situation that we have over at the plant. If you recall, we were having some problems with heat in the shop space, having some issues with heat in the lab, locker room, basically the main floor of the plant. We were reviewing it through a couple of different I guess, lenses as far as what we wanted to do with it. After consulting with Ryan, after consulting with Mr. Costick, consulting with Rains with regards to what we wanted to do, I think we came to the conclusion that our intent is to at least get these guys some heat for the winter time. It's an emergency, being that there's some very sensitive equipment in these areas that, if they're subjected to any kind of freezing conditions, could cost a lot of money to repair and affect the functionality of the plant. So a contractor was brought in to at least give us an option for some intermediate improvements, at least to give them some heat through the winter time. And we went ahead and signed a contract with Guy and Missler, and they are supposed to start work on October 19th. With basically the installation of a very simplistic forced air furnace. I think the total expense was $6,000 to at least get some heat in that area for the winter time. So that'll be complete hopefully shortly after October 19th. And then next year we'll evaluate the overall condition of the plant, formulate a strategy moving forward on how we address the rest of the stuff. So right up against it with the winter season coming on, We needed to get something going to make sure that we were in good shape over there. And the work that they're doing at the dollar figure that they proposed, that work doesn't necessarily have to go away. It can be incorporated into the overall plant HVAC system when we end up installing an overall system. So it's not necessarily, money that will be wasted. We won't necessarily have to rip all that sort of stuff out before or during whatever subsequent work we do. So it's not necessarily good money after bad type of thing. So I guess with that, Ryan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Good planning. Derek.
It's an emergency. I mean, they need heat over there. We can't let these guys get away with.
We've been talking about this for over
Yeah.
a year, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So it's a low cost option, relatively speaking, to providing some heat over there. And I can't expect these guys to come in a snowsuit, gloves, and hats every day just to do their regular job. And then also the equipment is a concern too. So that's where we stand on the HVAC lab unit or the HVAC system in that area. And then we'll be talking through that more as we go along, especially during the budget process, to make sure that we have long-term solutions budgeted for and planned in the subsequent fiscal year. So, any questions there? If not, the bar screens, we do still have some punch list items that exist regarding that project. Two issues worth noting. There were some problems with the discharge chute for the bar screen system. If you recall, the system brings materials up out of the wet well and then discharges it to a chute that is in basically the garage space, which then empties into a dumpster, which then is taken away. When they started running the system, the material started binding up in the chute, and the chute ended up failing. So Dupron came back, reconfigured and remanufactured the chute to address that problem. It's probably 80% reinstalled. They're just waiting on one additional fitting, and that's supposed to be done. You and I talked about Monday. Yep. So Monday they should be back to finalize that punch list item, and then when the bar screen system was installed, originally specified were basically guards that go on each one of these rakes, and they weren't originally installed because there was some concern about whether they would fit within the wet well. As you recall, we have very tight tolerances in there. And when they installed it, they didn't put these screens in or these guards in that they're not safety related. They're just to keep the material from falling off of the rakes as they traverse the wet well north and south or up and down. Ryan started experiencing issues where the material was falling off of these paddles, these rakes, which obviously we want the stuff out of there. We don't want it falling off and falling back down. So Dupron came in, they took some measurements. Sure enough, they can. There is enough room to be able to install these, so it was part of the original scope. They're going to go ahead and come back and install those as they're part of the original design for the system. So those are the two items that are remaining. And I can answer any questions with regards to the Dupron screens if you have any.
Dave, Nato and I were out there today and looked at the plant, and it was working today. And albeit that some things are falling off the paddles, I call them paddles, but that's going to be corrected. So hopefully that'll be improvement.
Yes, and Dupron has been standing by their product. When you guys approve the contract with Dupron, one of the benefits of working with them is they're a well-known company. They're established. Their product is pretty universal. A lot of plants utilize it, so They have a great reputation, and our experience with them has been that they're standing by that reputation and taking care of any issues that exist. So we've been pretty pleased with their responsiveness to these punch list items that we have.
Good.
So.
Any questions? Anybody? Okay.
Basis of design, this is once again associated with the ACO. OHM is the contractor, the engineer that's doing the work on the ACO mandates. We've had a contract with OHM for a couple of years to do this work, and they're in the process of designing the new clarifier that will bring us into compliance with that ACO. So we've done some boring over at the plant to determine the underground conditions. They're in the process of laying out the piping network, the elevations, the connection points, all with the intent of moving that project forward along the timeline the ACO mandates. So we're doing our work to get us prepared and ready to be comfortable with making the deadlines that the ACO mandates. So I guess more than anything, take away from this that the engineering is ongoing with regards to the ACO work and working along the schedule that the ACO mandates. So anything with regards to the basis of design. Asset management plan. I wanted to mention two different things here. The first being the maintenance audit. If you guys recall, we had authorized Fishbeck to perform the maintenance audit that we wanted to have conducted. I've been informed that that work will be completed by the end of this month. So that's in process and nearing conclusion, and then we'll be able to review the results of that maintenance audit as a commission. So just let you know that's on the horizon. And then the asset management plan, we're on track for our May 1st report. If you recall, the asset management program was a longer process than just 1 year. So the work where we stand with that is on schedule to be completed with this year's tasks by that May 1st, 2020 timeframe. So a lot of the things that they're doing right now are the asset inventory. Basically, they call it vertical assets that the township has with regards to the wastewater treatment plant and the various pump stations, lift stations that we have. So that's worked out well because as we were doing the maintenance, basically the maintenance inventory or the maintenance audit, a lot of the things that they're looking at for the asset management plan, a lot of those things jive with one another. So it's been a good coordination of efforts with regards to those two things that are ongoing.
So reading into this, is it possible that or is it probable that May 1, 2021 is our date we have to file by the report?
For that year.
So May 1st is the date.
Yeah, we have an annual report that's due on May 1st of each year of our asset management schedule, okay? So we have like 3 years worth of work. Each year on May 1st, we're required to submit basically a report that says what we did and whether we hit the scheduled work that we had for that given year.
And we made it this year.
Yes, correct.
We're on schedule for next.
Schedule, yep. And that's
Just hold on, John and Les, you're still on following all this? John and Les, John Reilly and Les Schmidtke?
I think they're playing the drums.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. I didn't X them out when I switched things over here.
John and Les, can you hear me? They've been zoomed away. John and Les, are you there?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Have you been hearing Derek's report on all this stuff?
Yes, we heard it all.
Yes.
Okay, well, I just wanted to check in because
we'd hate to have
we can see each other's faces. We can see each other's faces here, but all right. So Derek's going to continue on the primary and final clarifier improvements.
All right, so primary and final clarifiers. This is the work that we have been talking about for the past couple of months with the various equipment vendors coming in and discussing this with us. Just so that the DPS Commission knows, We have a mandatory pre-bid on the 15th, okay, which I think is tomorrow, right? And then the bids are due on the 22nd, and that's for the installation of these two items. It actually ends up being 3 items. Hopefully we get some good participation in the bidding process for this work, but those are the time frames we're looking at. So as we talk about November's meeting, and I had mentioned earlier, we are going to have some items if we get some competitive bids for this installation, and all indications are we will. We'll be looking to the DPS Commission to review those bids and make a recommendation to the Township Board to do the install of the equipment that we purchased in previous meetings.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
2 different things I wanted to mention that aren't on this list. We do have some issues over at the Elba Island Pump Station. Nothing that's affecting necessarily the functionality of it currently as far as any emergency type situations that are impacting or could cause potential sewer backups. But we have some corroded pipe within the structure that we're going to need to have replaced. So we're looking at that currently, what the best way to address that is. And you'll see that in subsequent meetings as a discussion item or an action item to make that repair. So John and Suez, through their normal rounds, noticed some problems there with some pipe that had corroded and failed. We're reviewing how far the corrosion has gone and how far back we need to replace. And John's been working diligently on that, getting some video, and Raines was pulling some prints together, and Ryan's been involved with reviewing, a few things with regards to it. So the group effort here will eventually bring something to you to show you what's going on there and make a recommendation for a repair.
Derek, when you say there was some failure, what exactly? I mean, just water leaking, or what exactly is happening?
I can explain it, but John probably would do a better job. Basically, there's some piping inside the wet well. There's a portion of that piping that has failed. It's a metal pipe. There's a hole in it. As the pump cycles, it pushes water out that hole back into the well, which basically the water should go out of the well, not fall back into the well. So that's a very basic and simple explanation. John, do you want to add anything?
That's great.
That's
just recirculating.
Yeah,
it.
recirculate instead of getting
it. It's making that hole bigger because of the water pressure, just burning that pipe. It's just rusted and corroded through.
We can't put any kind of sleeve or anything on it, temporarily. Okay.
We reviewed that option, and that wasn't an option. Then the other option is to remove and replace a spool piece of pipe with flange in each end. Remove and replace that would be the cheapest way to go, but so far the contractor's saying you need to go at least from the pump up and out, and then
let's do it. Let's do it right.
It's a small pipe, so we can't get a large enough or a camera small enough to get in there and see the condition of the pipe outside of the wet well itself. So
we brought Compo in because Compo's got a push camera. They TV'd it for us, but it's hard. I mean, a lot of it's underwater. John said it's too small to send Safeway in there to be able to send their camera in. So it's and plus on top of that, it's a force main, so a lot of times it's got water in it, so it doesn't really drain 100% down. So
we look forward to that report.
I'm sure. So you guys will be hearing about that sooner than later. And then one of the things that Bill and I had talked about was to try to get a traffic count on Meridian Road in anticipation of trying to push to get that on the federal aid list as high as possible. So you'll notice there's a couple of hoses across Meridian currently. We're doing a 14-day count out there. The cost is very minimal to do that. It's like $700. So we at least have that information available to try to work for the benefit of the residents to try to get something done with that road. So that information will be vital, I think we feel, to making as good of a case as we possibly can to get some help out there. So if anybody notices those running across Meridian, that's what they are for. So that concludes the project status report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions? If not, we'll move forward.
If not, the last item under my report is a memo that addresses the ditch work that we did around the township, basically from right after Labor Day until about a week ago. It shows, or it lists the locations that we did work, and then also the footage that we were able to complete underneath the project. For the benefit of the residents, we did about 1.7 miles of ditching work in the township in this fiscal year. We utilized a couple of contractors, one for ditching, one for hauling, and one for hydroseeding to reestablish vegetation and stem erosion issues that might arise anytime you uncover or leave a barren piece of ground. So those three contractors did a very good job for us. There is a map attached to this motion, or I'm sorry, this memo as well, that shows the approximate locations where we did the work. If you recall, when we had talked about this project some time ago, especially during the budget time, we had talked about specific locations, specific addresses that we had a list of, and areas that we had hoped to do work. We got through probably 50% of those that we had on our list. And we would have liked to do more, but as you can imagine, the ditching network is exactly that. It's a network. You know, we cannot pinpoint specific locations and not address other properties along that network. So we might have an address at a certain point on Meridian. Well, if we clear that ditch and downstream it's still clogged, it didn't do us any good to clean that one address. So essentially, when we got into areas where we had established problems, we had to carry that project through that entire area. So that's when you see Bridge Road. We had 2 or 3 addresses on Bridge Road. We went ahead and did that whole network based upon the flow characteristic of that ditch line in the area and where it's going to. So I think overall we were very pleased with the way the project went. I think we added just as many addresses to the list as we eliminated. I've dealt with ditching in the past in previous employment, and I can tell you that it wasn't received very favorably by the residents. I was pleasantly surprised by the positive feedback we received from the residents in the areas that we were working. Even to the extent, as I mentioned, we had residents coming to us saying, please add me to the list. Please, take care of me. Please address this in my area. Because I think they were pretty excited and happy to see some proactive maintenance activities happening that would end up and will end up resulting in positive drainage in those areas that maybe have been compromised in the past. So all in all, very, very happy with the work that was done, very happy with how all the vendors worked, very happy with how the staff worked. John and the rest of the DPW crew was out there every day making sure they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, where they were supposed to be doing it, addressing any issues that came up while we were going through the work. So I gotta say the project was a win. It was a great project that DPS instituted this year, and in subsequent years, personally, I would like to see a continuation of the work to the point where we can, obviously year over year get more and more of this done, because a lot of it hasn't been done in quite some time. So very good project, and I think everything worked out very well. You have anything to add, John?
I just wanted to add that Wayne County's maintenance Sibley Yard is working with us to jet each one of the cross tiles underneath the driveways. Currently, their vac truck is in for repair. I spoke with the foreman today, and he was going to acquire a rental vehicle to come out and start helping us get all those tiles jetted out in the areas that we had ditched, which will greatly improve the flow characteristic.
And that tells you a little bit of what the residents were dealing with out there. Some of these culverts were completely packed full of sediment, and there was no flow in those areas. So, once we open those up, we jet them underneath the driveways and stuff, we should have a lot better drainage profile or drainage characteristics out there in the areas that we did work. So.
And the timing of the project worked out well, because with the hydroseed, the grass is already growing back. Can't even tell we were there.
Well, that's right, because today we drove on Bridge, and I thought, well, I don't see all this work that was there. So the hydro seeds already come up. So looks good. The contour looks nice. So
Yeah, they use transits. They cut the slopes as intended. We weren't cutting any new ditches. We're just cutting it to the bottom of the existing culvert depth. So, nothing should have changed with regards to the depth of those ditches. But the amount of material that came out of them was quite significant and really hammered home the idea that and the anticipation that these ditches haven't, or the assumption that these ditches hadn't been cleaned in a while. The amount of material indicated that was the case. So,
Very good.
with that, I do not have anything further under the DPW Director's report.
John, Keim.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill. The department had completed their lead and copper sampling. There's a requirement by Eagle that was scheduled to be completed before September 30th, which it was completed. We're now required to obtain 30 samples from homes throughout the island to test for the amount of lead and copper in your drinking water. There were 2 homes that exceeded the acceptable limit. We're currently in the process of, as soon as we obtain the sample results, I contacted the customers, provided them the required information regarding drinking their water with the elevated levels, provided them home filters for their sinks, and contacted a contractor to have those lines replaced. That contractor will be in place next week, and we should be completed with that project by the end of next week. The anticipated cost for each one, because it's what is referred to as a long side service, which means the water mains across the street, it's going to be between $4,600 and $6,000 each, which is currently budgeted.
Yeah, if you remember, we put aside about $20,000 in this fiscal year to do lead line replacements for this exact situation. So the money is set aside to do that, and obviously, as you all know, is required by the state of Michigan for us to address these. So, John's doing a good job in coordinating those activities to get these issues resolved.
What's the frequency of the 30 samples now?
Annual.
Just annually?
Correct.
Okay.
We went from 5 because we're on reduced monitoring, and then after the Flint program,
Our annual data sampling is what month?
June through September. You're welcome. And one other thing I just wanted to mention is the staff is currently winterizing all the fire hydrants, and that project should be completed by the end of the month. And then we're also coming around to clean up any water main break areas or any areas that DPS had dug up, and restoring those before hopefully the end of next week. We should be completed with that as well.
One other item to note, we hope to have Wayne County here next week doing roadside cutting. They haven't been out all year, so we're trying to twist some arms to get them to come out, and I think that they'll be here next week to do some cutting for us. So.
Okay, very good. Ryan, I see you're next. Is there anything else you want to add to tonight's report?
Nothing new off of that. So
Yeah.
wrapped up. Yeah.
You're all set?
Yep.
Very good, thank you. Dave, you've been sitting in the audience. Is there anything you'd like to, I skipped over the public comment portion of the, I apologize. Is there anything you'd like to speak to the commission about?
No, other than I'm going to try real hard to bring myself up to speed.
Is Dave going to be possibly the new,
Quite possibly.
possibly? Well, I appreciate you taking the time today to tour with me and go to the sewage plant. Thank you. And you're welcome to speak if you want, but okay, very good. I don't think we have any discussion items. I'm going to give a small report in a minute, but I'd like to go around the table and do the commissioners' reports. And we'll start with Les and John. I'll give you the chance to talk, so we'll start with Les. Les,
Well, it sounds like we have a happy crew out there working. I never heard so many happies in my life.
I mean the residents are happy.
Well, it seems like everybody's happy. Derek's happy, the residents are happy, we're all happy. So we'll just have to sit there and sing Pharrell Williams' song, Happy.
It's public services. How can we not be happy?
I guess we're happy to be in a meeting together.
Just happy to be here.
But we miss you, your smiling faces. Les, you have
Well, I
anything?
miss you guys too very much, but I'm just kind of a little bit leery yet about getting out. I've been confined to this house since March. Between here and up north, I'm getting a little bit of stir crazy.
Are you getting around pretty well, or?
Yeah, my hip still hurts like Billy be damned, but I'm working on it.
All right. Anything else, Les?
No, I took a ride the other day and went and checked the bridges out, and it looks like they're really doing a good job on the West River Bridge. Matter of fact, they were working on Saturday. I could hear the trucks going around the corner and stuff, so the foreman that I talked to told me that thing was going to be open well before December.
That's good
so
news.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
That's good news, yep. John, do you have anything?
Nothing further at this time.
Well, I want you guys get stars for hanging in there. Hopefully we can see you all next month. With that, we'll go over to Jim Budny. Jim?
I have nothing else tonight. Thanks, Bill.
Laura?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. And thanks for getting back here today, Laura, from Ohio. And Phil?
Nothing further.
Thank you for getting back today. Ted?
Yes, two things. First off, I want to thank the commission for the work they've done, especially you, Bill. I think it's been about 12 years you've chaired this commission.
Ever since you left, you've been gone 12 years? I mean, as a treasurer?
15 years that you've sat on the commission, maybe even more.
Probably, yeah.
John, you've done a great job. This is my last DPS commission, so it's kind of epic. 25 years or more. I want to thank Les. He stepped up and really did a lot for the township. Got paid for some of it was free. But nonetheless, Les, thank you very much. John, you've done a stellar job.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for all your help. Appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Phil and Laura, good luck going forward. That's all.
Ted, we owe you a deep credit. We owe you much that you've done for the Public Services Department and the township. And you were sort of the mentor to many of us when we got on, especially me, I know. And through the years, your advice and your oversight has always been good guidance. And I respect you an enormous amount. And I want to thank you for all your years of service to us, with us, and your participation, your advice, your counsel. It's just been great having the opportunity to work with you, and I mean it sincerely. So thank you. Okay, now it's the chairman's report. And today when I rode around the town with Dave, I kind of reflected on our ride trying to tell somebody what's going on with regard to us here on the island. And I just want to comment on it a little bit. You know, our primary responsibilities are the water system and the sewer system and refuse collection and drainage. And then 15 years ago or so, we got roads given to us. And as much as we've tried with proposals in 2015 and 2018, we lost our bid, our recommendation to resurface roads. And we did get 10 years ago a millage for maintenance, which is on the ballot to be renewed. And I wanted to mention with that millage, what we use that money for is we supplement our snow plowing in the winter when we have a bad storm and there's declared on the island a snow emergency by the fire chief. We try to get out with some of our water department equipment and at least open up one lane on all the roads, because the county doesn't get to during a severe storm, they don't get to our neighborhood streets. We also do roadside mowing, and as you said, Wayne County hasn't been in all year. If it wasn't for us doing some of the roadside mowing, or majority of it, none of it would be done, and it makes the community look cleaner and nicer, adds to our quality of life. We do dust control, and those three items are a big deal. We generate about $225,000 a year with that maintenance millage. We spend about 100 on the items I just mentioned, and that leaves us about 125,000 a year to do extra things, like maybe pave an intersection, which we've done several this past year. Do some repairs on Grays Drive by the high school, where we spend a lot of money every year, or other concrete roads. And even match some money with, if Wayne County comes up with some money. So, as I look at things, my comment to be, if anybody's listening, as far as our water system is concerned, we buy water from Detroit, or from the Great Lakes Water Authority now. In the past 10 years, we've replaced the pressure reducing valves, both for the water main that comes under the Pay Bridge and the one that comes under the County Bridge. Those are our two main feeds. We've fixed those lines, replaced the pressure reducing valves, which is a big deal, a lot of money, and every year we're replacing water mains. We just talked tonight earlier about a $4 million project to replace our next severe section of water main that has a frequency of breaks, much of it on Meridian Road between Ferry and direction north. So our water system, we continue to work on. Our sewer system, we talked a lot tonight about all the improvements at the plant. We talked about at our wastewater plant that we're contemplating, that we're doing. And that's a 70, 80-year-old plant. And also, John mentioned the TV inspection program. We have a 5-year inspection program where we're TVing all the sewer lines, checking all the manholes, and trying to make the sewer system, fixing things that are broken and a problem, so that you have reliable water service, reliable sewer service. Last year, as far as our refuse, we had an exorbitant increase in cost from Waste Management. So we took bids and interviewed 4 firms, and we took a chance. This commission spent hours interviewing firms and going to their facilities and researching their equipment and their manpower and their trucks. And it's not just a simple deal. So we entered into a contract with Priority Waste. And all the feedback I'm getting is they're doing a great job. That's all the feedback that I'm getting. So that's another one of our responsibilities. We talked tonight about drainage, ditching, and whatever else. And every year we take on a number of drain projects to try to prove people let us know about drainage problems. We try to address them. And they're all over the township. They're not in just one area. So I think we've spent that money wisely. The one thing we failed on, and it's not because we haven't tried, the roads. And since the county has closed, so we all know that the roads, primary roads, my judgment, are pretty much a mess. And we have to compete with all the other communities in Wayne County to get the county to allocate money for road paving on our island. Now they're spending a ton of money on bridges right now. Meso Island Bridge is it's going to be completed probably in a month or two. All the bridge work on the big county bridge, some $10-12 million. Hopefully that'll be finished by December. But that leaves the roads. And I told Dave today that a few months back I got stopped in Kroger's. I always get stopped in Kroger's. People recognize me, so I wear that mask. But at any rate, and somebody said, it's a shame about Meridian Road, how bad it is, because now we all have to drive it. So I came back to the commission, and together we Derek and I and the commissioners, we put together a letter. And I want to highlight the letter again. There's a copy for you and John, and I'm going to pass this out. I know you all have it, but there's one for Ted. Thank you. And the letter was dated July 14th. So the letter was about Meridian Road, and what we were doing is trying to ask Wayne County if they could come out and meet with us and talk about Meridian Road. Now, road funding is complicated, and I would say this. There's 3 roads on the island that are eligible for what I would call federal aid. Throughout the metropolitan area, all 7 counties from Port Huron all the way to Ann Arbor, we're in the Detroit metropolitan area. And there's a group called SEMCOG. It's based in Detroit. And SEMCOG puts together every year a transportation improvement program. It's actually a 4-year program. And So what we were asking, in order to be eligible for federal aid, you have to be on that transportation program. We're not on it. Meridian Road's not on it. And also, each county prepares their priority list. In Wayne County, it's called a needs list. Their top 100 projects. Meridian Road was on it in 2015, off of it by 2017. Now, each year they rate their top 100 projects based on road conditions, traffic volumes. We don't have the traffic volumes compared to Livonia or Northville or Canton Township. And accidents. Thank God we don't have the accidents. And congestion. So we don't rate very high, so we were off the list. But in order to get some federal aid, which is 80% money, we wanted to meet with the county and ask them, how can we get on the TIP, the transportation plan for the region? How can we get on your priority list and high up? And I was thinking, my own thought was, if we could get them to get us on these two lists, I wanted to talk to the county, is what if you were able to program Meridian Road for a couple miles, a $2 million project? What if we came up with a local share? Go to our voters in 2022 maybe and say, this is just one idea. I mean, nothing's in stone here. If we raise the local share, go to our voters and say, for 0.2 of a mil for 5 years, we'll come up with a local share. You don't have to come up with it, Wayne County, but just get us the 80% funding. I don't know how else we're going to move forward with it. That's the reality. So that's what we wanted to do. Since July 14th, we've had no response until today. And I guess Joe Palomera finally got us some response today, right? You mentioned that they finally called back. We asked them to meet with us before our September 8th meeting. That didn't happen. We haven't even had a phone call back. Derek has tried to call them, and nothing has been successful. And it's just very frustrating for us. And it just makes me angry to think that county government doesn't respond to one of their community representatives. And we've complained about Wayne County before. They've done some good things. Their field office is going to work with us on cleaning out some drains. That's good. They've never done any ditching for us that I know of. And like Derek said, they're going to come out and do roadside mowing maybe next week. First time this summer. I know that they're pressed for money and they're spending a lot of money on the island. But what really makes me angry is that we can't even get them to come out and meet with us on something like Meridian Road. There's three things we wanted to ask them to do. Put us on the transportation improvement program for the metropolitan area so it at least appears on there, so we're eligible for federal funding. Put us on your priority list is the second thing, and then let's figure out a way to pay for the local share. And we haven't had that opportunity, so maybe in the next month, before our next meeting, I hope, we'll have that opportunity to talk to them. Nothing's set in stone, but if we don't get going and ask, surely nothing's going to happen. So that's my spiel for tonight. Very frustrating. Any comments?
No, just good job. I'm glad we sent the letter, and this is the frustrating part of our job. Is it's not that we lack the ideas or trying to do something. It's getting the other people to cooperate, and all we can do is keep knocking on their door. So we will continue to try.
Eric, anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
All right, well, thank you. Now we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Les?
I'll make that motion to adjourn, but I got one thing to say first, Bill. In your report, you said that we replaced the pressure reducing valve at both places, but we didn't replace the one in Trenton. We repaired it. That's a big difference.
You know, you're right, Les, but it's fixed now. Right?
Yeah, we have a service contract with that too, so that won't happen again, hopefully.
Yes. We corrected the problem.
So anyhow, I'm making a motion that we are going to adjourn this meeting and hope to God that we'll see you next month.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.